Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Review anything and everything. And today we are getting into a updated review of this wireless phone charger. Now, the reason why I'm doing this update is because previously I did a review on this charger. This is the Yootech wireless charger, 10 watt max charging wireless charger. And I'm not too familiar with the different watts and plugging things in. And the average consumer is also probably not going to be very familiar with that in terms of worrying about, what's the brick that I'm using to charge the chart to, use for my charger or whatnot. And normally when you have a charging brick and the USB wire going straight into your phone, you generally speaking do not have to worry about how fast the charging is, because most phones will adapt to that charger, which is why they'll have regular charging and they'll have fast charging. And for anyone who uses Android, and I don't know if this applies to all Androids, but in the recent years I've been using Samsung phones, and I know Samsung does this. But you plug in your phone to a charger and it will tell you have this long at the bottom of the screen. It'll say this long until it's fully charged. So sometime it'll say 2 hours, sometime it'll say 30 minutes, depending on how powerful the charger is. Now, I originally purchased this because one of my older phones at the time, it was actually a Galaxy S10, was when that was my phone that I was using at the time, was for whatever reason plugging the USB-C into the phone directly. It wasn't charging very well, and I was using this same type of charging head. This came in a 3-pack, so at the time I had one, and it wasn't this exact. It was this exact same style, but that one's plugged into the wall right now. Now you could see here it says the. I'm not familiar with all this stuff, to be honest with you. So I get it to focus. I'm sorry about that. Let me just move this out the way for a second. Maybe that'll help. So output, it says DCV, 5V, and it says 2.1A total. So I'm not too familiar with all this stuff. Some people might be, I don't know if people are, some people aren't. I get the whole watts when certain things will say watts. I have some level of comprehension on that because of the fact that I have a Mac laptop that uses a 30-watt brick. I know some phones for fast charging will say 30, 45-watt for fast charging. I have give me one second. I'm going to get my other charger because I need it for this video, actually, for a specific reason. So this right here, which is 65-watt charging. And like I said, I understand that concept. This is an Anchor charger, 65 watts. So I understand the concept of watts by real world use and what it's used for, meaning my MacBook requires a 30-watt. It's a MacBook Air and it requires a 30-watt little brick that it comes with. So I understand that anything less than that, it's not going to be able to charge it for how much the output is. And if I plug in something like this while I'm using my Mac, what happens is it tells me, it's insufficient power to charge. So I can comprehend the way watts work. And some people might be able to do the same based on real world applications, not just because you're reading numbers and you understand what that means, but you actually are plugging it in and you're understanding based on what the devices tell you, this is what that means. So though I don't know this in terms of watts and it's just telling me volts or whatever, I'm going to assume the V is volts. And I don't know what that translates into real world use. But what I do know is when I would plug use this power brick, and the cable, I guess, really doesn't matter much. So I'd plug this power brick into my, straight into my phone. It was the Galaxy S10 at the time. In the very beginning, when I first bought this charger, for whatever reason, and this might be a flaw of my phone at the time, I thought maybe with the charging port, this would usually charge at fast charging rates, but it wouldn't say fast charging. So for example, say if I plugged in my phone and I had like less than 50%, and it might say, or about 50%, and it might say something like fast charging, it's going to take 100 and I'm sorry, 1 hour and maybe 5 minutes with my current fast charger at the time, which was the charging brick that came with the phone. I would then plug this one in, and then this one would say, it wouldn't say fast charging, but it would say in an hour and maybe 12 minutes. So, okay, I tacked on maybe an extra 8 minutes, sometime maybe 10 minutes to that charging speed, but it didn't say fast charging. But nonetheless, I know that it's still charging pretty fast. Fine, no problem. As the years passed, for whatever reason, this wasn't charging fast anymore. And it started charging at a rate that would say something like 2.5 hours till full. And it was maybe at 40% or something like that, which was ridiculous. 30%, 40%. It's going to take 2.5 hours to charge. Now, um, because I would plug it into, the base piece, the charging the USB-C into the phone. Sometimes I'd be worried about, is it plugged in good, this and that, whatever the case is. If you take it out, take your phone off because you use it, then you may not plug it back in. So I said to myself, let me get a wireless charger, and it's easy just to throw it on, and that will also stop any issues with the charging speed. So I did that. It was actually charging a little bit faster, and I bought this to go along with it, so that way it charged really fast. Plugging this in 65 watts, it would actually charge very fast with this for wireless charging. Not super fast as far as compared to a plug, like a wired charge, but it charged relatively fast, faster than what it started saying for this one going directly in. It was no 2 something hours, which is great. And so when I reviewed this product, I said it was great because it charged very fast, and that part was something that was a big plus about it. Since that time, though, I had noticed that the charging would slow down. And all of a sudden, what would happen is this: when I plugged this in, it wasn't charging at all. When I would plug this in, it now charged. The wireless charger would be charging. And I didn't understand why. Apparently, and like I said, I'm not familiar with wattages and all this other stuff. I mean, well, voltages, but the wattages a little bit. Don't mind this little dusty on the bottom of this. Input 5 volts, and it's not saying the output, but essentially, it says 10-watt charging on the Amazon link, and I'll throw the link in the description. So I guess this is too much for it. So what happens is, at first you put it in, it's charging your phone well, and it's charging it fast. But at a certain point in time, and maybe if I put in something a little smaller than 65 watts, maybe it would be able to handle it. The 65-watt brick charges with it at first. And after maybe a couple of weeks of using it, this fries the wireless charging, but it doesn't kill it to where it doesn't charge anymore. You now have to plug in a weaker brick for it to actually charge wireless charge. And the problem with that is that when I put the wireless charger on this brick, it takes about 2.5 hours or close to 3.5 hours sometime. If it's below 40%, below 30%, or 20%, it can be somewhere between 2.5 hours to 3.5 hours to fully charge. Now, I don't mind when I'm going to sleep at night. I throw it on. I'm sleeping for 8 hours or whatever the case is. I don't mind. But when you need a quick charge, this doesn't work. Now, I'm not going to necessarily knock the charger because, like I said, I'm not familiar with the volts and how things work with the whole charging and how much something can receive in terms of the input. Now it says 5 volt for the input, and then you could see here this one is saying for its output 5 volts, and it works. So maybe something like this is what's compatible with that, because this comes with a wire but doesn't come with a brick. But the issue is that you kind of get fooled because it works with the bigger, stronger brick until it doesn't. And so I just wanted to clarify that and give this update video for it, because when I first released the video before, I said that this was a great charger, a wireless charger, and it's still good if you don't mind slow charging. But if you need fast charging, this is not the charger for you, because it's not going to be able to sustain a fast brick versus a slow brick. And I just needed to give you guys that update so you knew that. I'm sorry that I stretched this video out so long. I want to also say, though, that when you're using a wireless charger, keep in mind that when you use a wired charger, just the act in the way that we use our phones, if you have your charger on um, a regular wired charger, if you pull it out to use your phone, and then you may not put it back on the wire charger. So that sometimes causes the inconsistency where even though it charges maybe fast, you might not put it on it. Though this charge is slow, the fact that you don't mind just dropping your phone on it at any given moment, it's not a big deal. Just kind of like drop it down. You keep texting, drop it down. It at least gives it more of that consistency. So even though it's charging slow, I found that causes you don't mind putting it back on the charger as opposed to plugging it up, because your wire, when you unplug it, falls to the floor. You don't want to bend down. You have this next to your bed. You just lean your arm over, put the phone back on it. It keeps that consistent charging. And I find that in itself causes a slow charger to still be more consistent. So that's something to keep in mind too when it comes to that. But in terms of just fast charging, this is not a fast wireless charger. So with that being the case, I would definitely tell you do your research on understanding how fast charging works for wireless chargers. How much can they handle? What's their capacity? How does that work? What's the difference between volts and wattages? And like how does that translate to each other? How much can this 10-watt charger handle when you see a brick that's talking about volts? Now, like I said, wattage, I understand it's 65 watts, that's 10 watts. Now, I just assume that it can handle the current coming into the charger, but would simply give me an output of 10 watts. Apparently, that's not the case because it can't handle the current coming in and just totally doesn't work at all. Now, when you plug in power into this, down here, and I can't reach to an outlet right now, this little this ring right here glows green when you first plug it in, and then it turns off. And then when you put a phone on it, it will, when it starts charging, that ring will glow green again to indicate that you put it on the charger. When you plug this brick into this charger, you get the green light. So you know that it's working in terms of its receiving power. But when you put the phone on it, the phone will not indicate that it's charging. So for whatever reason, it's too much power going through. It is receiving the power. It's not able to discharge it for whatever reason. So you know that the charger is not broken. It's almost like it learns the amount of power that it can and can't handle and stops using it. Where when you first buy this brand new, it will utilize that power, but then it'll stop. Now, when you plug this in, you get the same thing, those green lights. But what will happen is now when you put your phone on it, it will accept the charge and start receiving a charge. And when you do that, it will indicate to you, at least with this size brick. I don't know if there's a slightly bigger brick than this, but smaller than this, that will give you faster charging than this, but obviously slower than this. But I only have this one and this one. And so what happens is it starts charging. Excuse me, I'm sorry, hiccups. It starts charging at a very slow rate. So I just want to give you guys that update. I'm sorry that the video went long, but I wanted to properly explain it to you guys so you guys understood that when you guys go looking for any wireless charger, you guys are able to know the difference. You don't purchase something or be misled. And I wanted to give you guys that information because I gave a review before in which I said this was a great product. And though I don't take it back that it is a great product, you definitely have to understand what you're purchasing and how it's going to be able to be used and what it's actually bringing towards you for its benefits. With that being said, you guys, as always, like, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.